Inspiring interviews with today's top landlords. This is the Rental Income Podcast. And now, Dan Lane.
I got an email from a listener of the podcast that lives in a very expensive area. She wants to buy a rental property, but she just feels like prices are too high right now. And she wants to know, is this maybe not a good time to buy a rental property? Should she hold out and maybe see if prices come down in the future? I think that's a great question, and on the show today, we're going to try to answer that. Joining me on the show today is Farris Gosea from Northwest Indiana. Farris has been here a couple of times, and what we're going to do is we're going to answer some listener emails. We're going to answer another listener that had a question about how to find deals. We have an email about trying to raise capital to buy rental properties, and someone else that has a question about working with realtors. So let's take a really quick break. We'll thank our sponsors. We'll come right back and we will answer our first listener email. If you're looking for a quick and easy way to finance a rental property, reach out to Chaley Ridge from Ridge Lending Group. She has a loan program where she only cares about your deal. She doesn't need to see your pay stubs, your bank statements, or your tax returns. The only thing she's going to look at is the deal. She wants to know, does the property cash flow? If it does, she'll give you a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage. Now, the rates are going to be a little bit higher than a full doc loan, but it's still a great deal. She can close quickly, and there's no hassle. If you want to learn more, reach out to Chaley personally at ridgelendinggroup.com. That's RIDGE lendinggroup.com. NMLS 42056.
Rental Income Podcast.
All right, Farris, so here is the first question. This is from Kelsey. She writes in and says, the market in my area is terrible. The average single-family house is about $400,000, which is a price that I can't afford. Anything below $300,000 is not in a good area. The properties are usually not well kept, and this concerns her because she wants to attract good, stable tenants. So here's what she wants to ask is, what's our advice? Should she wait a while and see if prices improve? Or if she buys now, will the market crash? And will she potentially lose a lot of money? So, Farris, what do you think? I mean, there's a lot here. Maybe we could start with the crash. Like, do you think that the market is about to crash?
In certain areas, I think some prices are a little inflated. There's definitely, in my opinion, not a crash coming. Everyone tries, not everyone, but some people relate this to '08 when, obviously the market did crash. This is a lot different. Appraisers aren't going out there doing, overinflating appraisals. There's none of that going on. It's just there's a very little supply of houses, and people just having to pay more to buy those houses.
That's true.
Mortgages are obviously, verifying income, background checks, all that kind of thing. I mean, there's really nothing going on here other than building has slowed down, inventory is down, and people have just had to pay more for houses in this period of time.
Yeah, I mean that's true. And obviously, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what's going to happen, but I 100% agree with you. We have a housing shortage. There's very low supply, a lot of demand. So, it's like even as rates go up, the market may slow down a little bit, but I agree with you. I don't really see prices coming down in most areas. Maybe some areas that have seen just crazy appreciation, maybe they'll see prices come down a bit. But, I think in properties that would be good rentals, I just don't see them coming down that much.
Yeah, and if you're buying a rental, you shouldn't worry too much about price fluctuations. We're only targeting, people who want to rent. And if you're holding it long term, then the up and down of the price of the home actually shouldn't matter too much.
That's true.
Now,
That's true.
In relation to the question there with the $400,000 house, I don't believe that anyone should be buying a $400,000 plus house as a rental, just for so many reasons.
Yeah.
I think that, if that is your market that's close by you, you should probably be looking at investing somewhere else out of state that is more suitable to renting.
Yeah, because if you look at the 1% rule, so if a $400,000 house, you'd want that to rent for $4,000 a month, and I don't know what area of the country Kelsey is in, but I would doubt that would rent for $4,000 a month. Even if
Yeah,
it did, I feel like you'd be better off buying 4 houses for $100,000 and making $4,000 that way. It's just less risky because you've got 4 tenants. So,
correct, exactly. You get one larger payment tenant not paying. That's not good. That's a huge payment to cover. If they're not paying, then you get into what is the size of that kind of house. I mean, you have repainting, you have fixing things. I'm sure it sounds like your area is very expensive in general, so getting things fixed in that area is probably pretty expensive.
yeah.
A new furnace, I could imagine, could run anywhere from 6,000 to 7,000. Here in my area, I can put one in for 2,200 to 2,400. So there's a lot of other factors to consider.
Yeah.
When you're looking at those kind of house prices, and it just really doesn't make sense.
Right.
So
Yeah, and even the $300,000 houses that are in the not so good part of town, like that doesn't even make sense.
that's still very
Yeah,
expensive for
yeah.
a not so good part of town.
Right. Right, exactly. So all right, so the best advice that we can give her is to maybe look in another area, or I would even say that she may be able to house hack, that if she buys that $400,000 house and it has 4 or 5 bedrooms, she could always rent out rooms. And that might be a good way to get started if you didn't want to invest out of town.
I mean, it really depends on someone's lifestyle, right? If they want to live with a bunch of roommates, and also then who are you inviting into the home, right? I mean, there's one thing having a tenant that's messy and you don't really have to see him other than maybe an annual inspection, but living with that person and then having to maybe trying to fix someone that you live with. So
yeah, that's true.
There's pros and cons to it.
Absolutely.
But I would say that in those kind of situations, if you are looking to invest, just kind of learn more about the market and in terms of nationally in different areas. And obviously, I invest in Indiana, Northwest Indiana, and I believe the areas here are very suitable, for investing.
All right. The next question comes from David, and he wants to know if there's any good websites we could recommend where he could find foreclosure properties for sale. I'd be curious to see what you're seeing. In my area, there aren't a whole lot of foreclosures. In your area, are you seeing foreclosures?
No, not many foreclosures. I don't honestly even look. That's not something I deal with. But if it really depends again, if someone is new and trying to maybe get into flipping a foreclosure or like fixing it up, I guess this is getting a little off topic here, but I don't believe that's the best way to get started in investing. Because getting people to do things these days, especially in terms of labor and the prices, is very tough.
Yep.
There's a shortage of good workers, so that's one big issue. The other issue is you're dumping a lot of capital into something, which it gets risky. You're going to flip it, well, then there's capital gains to deal with. Are you going to refi out? Well, you could get a bad appraisal. You're competing against people who actually flip homes. Like my best friend here flips about 160 to 200 a year. So when people tell me they want to get into flipping, I'm like, well, you're going to have to compete with him who has 150 staff plus everyone else in the area who's been doing it for many, many years. So if rentals is the long-term play, then I would probably try and pick up something more turnkey, rent it out, just get in that way, than look into, buy a foreclosure and try and hope that it goes well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's good advice. I really like that. Now, what about other ways to find deals? Because, with there not being a lot of foreclosures, and I mean, you made some good points that a foreclosure might not be the best way to go. If you're not finding properties on the MLS, what are some other ways that people can find deals?
Yeah, absolutely. So I myself, I do a lot of cold calling. If anyone's listened to my previous podcasts, so I now have softwares. Arianomy is a good one. That's about $500 a month. CoStar, obviously, I'm sure people know what that is. That's another good website to use. So those are for multifamily properties. In terms of just trying to call maybe some single family homes, I'm sure you have a website that you can go to for your area. Typically mine is, where where you make tax payments. You can go there. You can maybe look around, like type someone's name in, or not type the address in, and then someone's name will pop up, so you can see who owns it, and you can then skip trace them, which means you'll find a website where you can plug that name in, get their phone number, and then give them a call, and then just see if they want to listen to an offer.
Yeah.
So that's one way of trying to find something that isn't hitting the market yet.
Yeah, listsource.com is another place people can go if they want to look up names. You can put in criteria, like maybe you want to find people that have a lot of equity in their property, or people that have paid off properties, or they've owned them for a long time, and you can pull a list in a particular area. So that might be another good way to go. But yeah, so calling, texting them. I know I get calls and texts from investors every single day trying to buy my properties. So it definitely works, or people wouldn't be doing it. Or you could also send a letter out to people, and sometimes direct mail works pretty good. Have you tried that? Have you ever sent out direct mail?
No, I've never sent out direct mail.
Okay.
Again, my friends who do flip some houses have a lot of direct mail going on. I believe that's more, for wholesaling, flipping, that kind of thing, direct mail. If you're looking to just, buy one or two here and there, I think, trying to cold call is better, just because it's quicker, it's easier to do. You can sit down for a couple hours, do it, and then go on your way.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. One thing I just want to put out there is that the house that I live in, I found it by sending out a letter. So my wife and I knew the exact neighborhood we wanted to live in. We knew the model we wanted, but just nothing was coming for sale. So I went in the MLS and I pulled a list I looked at the tax records and pulled a list of that particular model that we wanted. And we just wrote a handwritten letter to the 30 models that were in the neighborhood, that were houses that we would be potentially interested in. We sent them a letter. We probably got 5 or 6 calls back. A lot of people were ridiculous on their prices, but we found someone that was looking to sell. So it does work. And I think you could do the same thing on a rental property. So, all right. So the next question here is from Zach. And he said that the biggest roadblock for me is finding capital for a down payment. He's got a portfolio of 9 rental units, 2 storage units, and he wants to buy 4 more properties. With 4 more properties, he'll be able to retire from his W-2, and he wants to get those properties ASAP. He wants to know if we have any suggestions to overcome the lack of capital for a down payment. So, Farris, what do you think? What should Zach do?
It's very tough to answer that question without knowing someone's skill set, right? So I don't know what he does for work, those kind of things. But I think there's always some interesting ways to try and get more capital. For me, I went into brokering real estate, so that was very good for me.
So
for other people,
go ahead. What do you mean by that is you're a realtor, so you sell houses and get a commission check.
Correct. I deal with more of the larger commercial buildings.
Okay.
But so again, there's multiple ways to make money once you have a real estate license. You can sell retail, you can sell multifamily, you can sell friends' houses in the neighborhood. So I think if you're willing to get out there, put yourself out there and work hard, I think getting a real estate license and and you love real estate, I think that's a very good way to try and generate some income. And again, it's not for everyone. A lot of people with licenses don't make much money, but it's one idea for you to try and get some extra capital.
Right. And so if you're looking to raise 20 or 30 grand, I mean, that's really not that difficult to make 20 or 30 grand with a real estate license. The other thing that I'm thinking here is he's got 9 properties. He may have some equity in those properties. So maybe he could look into doing a cash out refi, and tapping into some of the equity that way. He might be able to find a deal where the seller would be willing to finance the property. Those deals are going to require some work, but there are people out there that will sell or finance a property. Or you could find a private lender. If you could find an investor that is just looking for a return, and if someone is willing to lend you money if you can pay them 5 or 6% and, they're happy because they're getting a good stable return, and you've got a good property that's producing cash that can more than service that debt, that could work out good for you and for your investor. So is there anything else? Anything else come to mind?
Yeah, just two quick thoughts there. The one with the borrowing money, I think that's a good way to do it. Just make sure that if you're getting a conventional loan, that money has been seasoned for 2 months, meaning you don't borrow it and then send lend the bank statements, because they're going to ask to verify where that came from.
Yep.
You can't borrow funds to buy a property through a conventional loan. So, and you can't send them the note and say this was borrowed funds. So there's just that to make sure you don't do if you do go that route. And again, like Dan said, I think looking into, if you sell one, could you get 100,000 and then go put that elsewhere to buy a few more rentals? Sure. That's an idea. And then even, how is your market? Are the prices, where are the prices of your rentals? Maybe looking out of state at some cheaper options.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. He's got 9 rentals, maybe sell off 2 of them, and maybe he could buy a few properties out of town somewhere that are going to cash flow better, and that could work out.
Yep.
Okay, so our last question here is from Dan, and he said that his wife and him have been talking about buying their first rental property. One question he has is, do we need a realtor to purchase a rental property? And if we do use a realtor, do we pay a commission? So, Farris, I'll let you answer this one, but I think he maybe doesn't understand that the seller actually pays the commission, right?
Correct. Yeah. So it's a kind of double-edged thing, because the seller does pay, the commission. They pay the buying agent and the listing agent, but you pay a little more for the house, so they can pay, the buying agent and the listing agent. I would suggest, if you're brand new, definitely find an agent that knows what they're doing when it comes to investing. I have seen so many bad agents trying to help people with investment properties that just don't own any themselves. So how do they really know the business and what would make a good rental if they're not in it? So just make sure you find someone that knows what they're doing. There is obviously like cold calling. That's a way to, go direct to seller and basically cut out both buying agent and listing agent. But if that question is being asked, it sounds like you guys are really new. I think that getting an agent for the first couple is not a bad idea until you learn the business.
Absolutely. And it doesn't cost you anything. Like Farris said, the seller pays the commission, so it's not going to cost you anything out of pocket. So
yeah, and if they're a good agent, they'll be willing to help you, teach you a lot about real estate, that kind of stuff. So I think it's really good to have a really, really good agent on your side. A lot of people that I've seen sometimes, use a family friend, and that's sometimes never the best thing to do, because they really, maybe sell 4 to 5 houses a year, don't know really too much about real estate, especially investing. And I don't think that really helps in terms of learning too much. So.
Right. And the other thing to keep in mind too is that your realtor is working on commission, and if they're not getting paid, they're not going to be very motivated to work with you. So you really want them to be compensated, and you want them to feel like it's worth their time to help you out. So, so I guess don't engage a realtor unless you're really serious. You don't want to be wasting their time or taking up their resources and have no payoff for them in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah. And especially, if you are looking for a very top agent in terms of working with investors, that's the first way to ruin a relationship, to never have them talk to you again or send you anything, is by, wasting their time and not actually wanting to invest.
Right. If you want to hear more from Farris, I've got links to his prior interviews on the website. You can find it all at rentalincomepodcast.com/episode 375. And as Farris mentioned, he is a realtor in Northwest Indiana. If you're looking to invest in that area or you want to find out more about it, you can reach out to Farris. I've got his contact information on the website too. You can find that as well at rentalincomepodcast.com/episode 375. I'd like to thank our sponsor for making this episode possible. It's Chaley Ridge from Ridge Lending Group. Chaley is a nationwide lender, and her specialty is helping investors finance rental properties. She has a ton of different loan programs if you're looking for a way to get your payment down with interest rates going up. She does have some interest-only options, as well as the 30-year fixed. She's got a ton of different options. If you want to reach out to her and learn more, just go to ridgelendinggroup.com. That's RIDGE, lendinggroup.com, NMLS 42056. Thank you so much for checking out the podcast today. Make sure you follow the show. We put out new interviews every single Tuesday, and if you're following the show, you'll get notified as soon as they come out. My name is Dan Lane, and this has been the Rental Income Podcast.